As part of its allocations for drainage and irrigation, government has signaled its intention to soon begin significant drainage and irrigation and other works in the Cookrite Savannah about Blackbush Polder in East Berbice. Over the years, and more particularly during the floods last year, cattle farmers lamented the lack of drainage and irrigation infrastructure there as they watched helplessly as their cows and calves perished due to the extended flooding of the savannas. Through the Ministry of Agriculture, thousands of cattle were rescued from the floodwaters and moved to high ground, but still, hundreds of heads of cattle were lost. Since then, the water has receded significantly, but according to the farmers, was prevented from being completely drained because of inadequate or damaged tubing, clogged up drainage channels. Following a recent media report that claimed that the savannah was once again inundated and that hundreds of cattle were once again dying there, Minister Mustapha ordered a team to visit the area to see firsthand the state of affairs. The team comprised CEO acting of the GLDA, Dr. Dwight Waldron, and other GLDA officials. They were taken in by the cattle farmers of Cookrite Savannahs and shown the areas where urgent DNI and dam repair interventions were needed. At no point during the more than 5 hours in the savannah was there any evidence of dead cows strewn along the dams, as was reported. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustapha, who has just returned from accompanying His Excellency Dr. Irfan Ali on his visit to Belize, has assured that engineers are currently mobilizing equipment to effect key interventions in the short term, but that major infrastructure works to allow for proper drainage and irrigation for both cattle and rice farmers will be undertaken.
I heard that Cookrite Savannah was flooded out, so I asked that a special team from the Ministry of Agriculture visit the area. As a matter of fact, the team was led by the CEO of GLDA, Dr. Walron, with other officers from the ministry and also the farmers. They went there, they did a number of inspections, and I think most of the water that we had last year in the flood have been receded and the savannah is fairly dry. What we need to do, we need to do some drainage work in the savannah, and I have assured the farmers that we will immediately start some work there where I will make an excavator available so that all the main drainage canal we can clear and excavate so that the farmers can have better drainage system in the Cookrite Savannah. We know the challenge also in the Cookrite Savannah that there are some people who took up land there and they are planting rice. And if we want to develop our cattle industry, then rice and cattle can go hand in hand. That area is earmarked for cattle rearing, and we'll have to ensure that we have those cattle farmers take up their spot and use that area for cattle rearing. Because sometimes when the rain falls and they have to drain in the housing area, through the water passes through the housing area, it put a drain and it put a serious strain on the drainage system. So what I will be doing, as I said, I will be excavating the canals so that the water from the Cookrite Savannah will drain faster into the drainage system to the Atlantic. So I'm hoping that that work can start shortly. I'll be working with the farmers. We want to develop our cattle industry. And as a matter of fact, in this year's budget, we have money budgeted also to build pastures across the country. So I'll be working, as I said, all in all, hand in hand with the farmers to develop this industry.
In the wake of claims of animals dying in the savannah, the GLDA team that visited the savannas were engaged by the cattle farmers, who shared with them what was necessary to permanently bring relief to farmers rearing livestock in the area. Dr. Waldron was able to confirm that the floodwaters of 2021 that were in the savannah lands had drained off for the most part, but was elevated by the intense and prolonged rainfall in February 23 last. This initial conversation took place a few miles into the savannah using the Yakusari Blackbush Polder entrance.
The rain last week on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, that is what, that show a lot of water on the island.
Show back a lot of water
In the system.
and there a couple drain stage like and then the rain come right the
So
water back.
therefore, no, I just want to make sure I get this clear. From the floods that we had last year, which was 3 different periods.
Right.
Good. So that water was receding, actually receded. I know,
To an
based
extent.
on our report,
Right.
we had about 80 something, 90 of those weak animals got stuck in the mud. So those died during the period. Not all one day, but over
No,
a
no,
period,
no. Right.
they went on. And last week, we got the excess rain that we had, which back up the system.
The cattle farmers also gave their opinions on what was necessary to prevent a reoccurrence of the flooding that occurred last year.
We can't get the Cookrite Savannah water to come in this trench also because it's getting to the housing area. Right, so what we have to do now, we have to get we own separate drainage to carry back this water for south to 52 side.
Good.
We will explain and show you when you reach there how we could do it. You can't come in this
How it
system
can
at all.
happen?
Okay, to throw the excess water.
Yeah.
So let's say if we have a repeat of what happened last week, the water can go
Yeah,
go
right,
go
can go
back
down.
there.
Part to go, all can go there.
No,
Part.
but a little bit what
Yeah.
they can assist and things.
When they design Cookrite Savannah, part of the water used to grab it and go to
Go back to creek.
creek, and the man when they establish Blackbush, them all them creeks, the man will put boxes on it.
Right.
Because the water can't reverse back when it comes to frontier. Because you not get a drainage system, it's creek. You flow one way all the time. It's forward or to the seaward. Then you can put it. So no water can't do. If you carry back water back there now, you got to put infrastructure in there. It's what they fail to do when they give out land thing, then they put non-drainage system. The government just give out land like that without no drainage system. So nobody not get nothing. All man pressing now, the area, so everybody had drain inside the irrigation canal. You get, all the man will get 2,000 acre, 1,500, 700, 500, them are drain inside the
In
system.
the irrigation canal.
Yes, in the irrigation canal.
So with the rain last week, how many animals you have?
A couple calf, well, listen to me now. On Saturday we go in there on the thing. And one cow and that couple did thing. Well, tiger then, that was a tiger.
That one
thing
is
and
from
it's there.
Jaguar.
Yeah.
Jaguar attack.
And we get a dam, Musa, right? This is where we just bring out the water, the thing. There was a dam established years ago. Zulfikar we rehabilitated back like in 2010. Well, that dam is up with thing. They call bust the dam like when train dig and anything.
Okay.
This dam goes all the way to the number 51 channel, and the farmers would like government help in not only rehabilitating this dam, but also excavating the channel which runs alongside the dam and the installation of tubing to allow the excess water in the Savannah to drain into the 51 canal and so out to the Atlantic. But they say this is only possible if both the number 51 and 52 channels are properly excavated and maintained.
Rainfall from Wednesday to Saturday. In the area underwater, presently majority cow in water. Cattle. Some of them chop them rest of farmers, move out them cattle and they graze it in New Cookrite pasture. But we are still lying over there.
So what do you
So
mean?
we asking now for the rehabilitate the old dam them, right? The new dam and they get a cross dam to come back to the 50 this is the 55 scheme dam. This is the right place, the 55 scheme dam. Right, and we think we'll get little relief on the thing,
Yeah.
the work, right?
But you're also talking about some interventions in terms of clearing the 52 canal.
Yes.
Tell me how you want to do that.
Well, this 52 canal got to clear. This is a drainage canal. This got to clear to go till to the ocean. Yes, we they impounded the piece, and if you got to impound the back, this over there, we call this Cookrite Savannah, right?
You
So-
want to pull the whole thing?
Yes, if they impound and the water will come back in the drainage canal, right? Because if you think there, you got to block the place, and you come in 50, and then you got to rehabilitate back the 50 to get back the water to the ocean.
This is the number 52 drainage channel, and on the other side of the dam is said to be the 51 channel. It is these two channels, the back of Yakasari, that Mr. Raj Kumar is referring to. Further along, and way closer to the Kanji Creek, we visited this cattle ranch where mash day rains resulted in higher water levels. But as you can see, the animals were in no danger here, with an option to come up onto the dams away from the water. Here again, I spoke with a few cattle farmers who had a number of suggestions on what they hoped government would do in terms of drainage and irrigation interventions in the short and long term. Mr. Suresh Singh says he has been a cattle farmer all his life and has more than 500 head of cattle in the Cookrite Savannah.
Well, we never got no drainage.
Where the water comes from?
Well, most of rainfall, and then when the flood come, it come from Kanji Creek. But most time now is rainfall. But the drainage very poor. And we need a tubing down by the trench there to drain out, right, to go to the canal to go Kanji Creek.
So the floods that happened last year, the water went away?
Yes, the water went away and he left.
Right.
He left, you know. After the drainage can't carry him no more, so he can't go on the rain and come down steady.
Mm-hmm. So you were affected by the rains that fell last year?
Yes. Up to last week rainfall for cat.
So have you been suffering any major losses?
Yes. From the flood to now, over 250 animals dead out to me. But another one place, one in the savannah, and when you go off it, then if you draw one animal, it don't decay, so you care. Then you smell where you're going to water, if you get sick. You don't pass already.
But over the last 3 months or so, how much you think you lost?
About 15 head. Couple well dead on this dam, then calf and thing. Then you cow.
All from because of the floods?
Yes.
The water?
Yeah, because they not go down for graze. They must stand up and distress them more than I want to go. And I will never know we move to take them to carry them go. Non-hospital moon a day. But one sing all full up.
Mr. Singh expressed the view that while the Ministry of Agriculture has been a big help during times of emergency through the GLDA, he believes the agency would be better equipped to respond if it had access to its own excavator.
Yeah, well, GLDA give a help, but we're not satisfied because if now GLDA get your own excavator, he could assist the cattle farmer more than depends on the rice one and this one and that one.
Mr. Peter Crawford, another veteran cattle farmer of more than 60 years, offered his take on what are some of the interventions needed to solve the issue of flooding in the Cookrite Savannah.
Behind the bush is Kanji Creek. Now we get them creek people get them a portion of land, first their land. And from the edge of the bush here, we need a crown dam there. For prevent that overburden, overflow water when the rainfall heavy, for not to come in front here. That and what structure got to dip on this 52 trench at the back there. For stop the overburden water to come in front. Then we can get drainage to go out on the road that way. Only then we can get that done. Without that, we still like square one.
But the canal got to clear.
Yeah, right, this canal got to clear in a proper way and maintain in a proper way.
All of the suggestions made by cattle farmers of the Cookrite Savannahs have been communicated to government, and those considerations are being actively considered by the technical team of the NDIA. CEO acting of the GLDA, Dr. Dwight Waldron, speaking on the issues affecting the farmers of Cookrite Savannah, said that the issues facing farmers in the area are known, but require major infrastructure upgrades to ensure proper drainage in the first instance, but also proper irrigation, and that these interventions will be undertaken, but in phases over the short and long term. He, however, stressed that the Ministry of Agriculture through the GLDA has and continues to provide technical and veterinary support to the cattle farmers, not only in Cookrite Savannahs, but all of Guyana. And in relation to challenges faced by farmers in Cookrite Savannah, the agency's extension officers have been spending considerable time there. Dr. Waldron spoke of a massive program by government to reinvigorate the local cattle industry through a multi-pronged approach.
We know what the industry would have went through last year in terms of the flood. GLDA, we would have made a number of interventions during the flood. Unfortunately, how the orientation of the land would have prevented complete drainage during that 6 weeks to 3 months period. So it had to be released bit by bit. As you can see, you would have seen during our tour of this area, some of the areas, or most of the areas, the water would have receded quite a bit and the animals now have access to feed again. Our staff in our routine work program on a weekly basis would visit various areas within the scheme. I won't say that they would spend an entire day in the Akasari or the follow-up scheme or so on, but they would routinely go through to monitor the activities because we have other programs that are being undertaken also. This visit shouldn't be seen as one that is reactive in nature. It should be seen as one that is more proactive. The reason being that the plans which we have for the industry for it to rebound following the flood, we have various aspects which we will be undertaking, and one of the main aspects would be pasture rehabilitation and development. Also, there's a climate change aspect to it, and the Minister of Finance would have touched quite a bit on that in his budget presentation. From our end, we'll be working with NDIA, MMA, and other agencies to ensure that the cattle farmers see the kind of developmental activities that would need the industry to move to another level. That would be to ensure that the pasture aspect, we have monks, high monks, and for us, because when you look at this area, it would be difficult for us to make monks within the pastures. So what we'll be doing is using the dams, making the dams as high as possible, so that the dams can be used as high monks during the next rainy season, which should be the May, June, but it's hard for us to predict now. So I'm just hoping that the weather can hold so that we can have those interventions done quickly.
The GLDA boss also spoke of the government's move to upgrade the genetic stock of cattle in Guyana so as to ensure a higher level of productivity and faster turnover.
In addition to that, Minister would have spoken to the fact that they need to have genetic material available to farmers for them to have access to that. I want to say, we're moving ahead with those projects. Unfortunately, for one part of it, the live animal importation aspect, that is being hampered severely by the logistical challenges that the world is faced with in terms of getting those animals here. But in terms of semen, yes, we have those semen already procured. So it's just a matter of us rolling out that program, and that should commence before the end of this first quarter, which would end at the end of this month, because today is the 1st of March.
Dr. Waldron also spoke to a strategy in which some 12,000 doses of sexed semen have been sourced and imported for use in cattle farms across the country.
What is important to note here is that we are importing in excess of 12,000 doses of sex semen. What is sex semen? Sex semen is basically all female. For the industry to really rebound, we need to have a very high female population. So the government would have invested heavily in ensuring that we have the kind of material, genetic material on the ground that would allow the industry to rebound very fast. And the breed, as you can see, Brahman is the base here. Because of the climatic conditions, external parasites and so on, we want to continue that, use Brahman as the base. But something that would excite the Guyanese public and, well, more specifically the farmers, is the introduction of the Gere Brasileira. We're getting that out from Canada. That's the milking Brahman. I know a lot of persons would have seen it in India, how they're performing. So what we're looking to do is to have a higher weight gain per day from those calves. Instead of a farmer marketing the animals at 3 years, they can look now at 24 months, 18 to 24 months. And if they have established pastures, I'm sure they can do it within a shorter time using that breed. So those are some of the interventions that the government is looking to implement. And this is not just on paper. These are things that we are actually doing, and we want to ensure that throughout all the cattle producing regions that those genetics are made available to those farmers.
The Ministry of Agriculture agency head said that while it is impossible to solve all the problems facing the farmers of Cookrite Savannah and other areas around the country at once, it is important that the extension staff be on the ground, staying connected with the farmers and responding in a timely manner to the health issues of the animals affected by flooding and other conditions that result in fungal and other infections.
We can't solve all the problems in the office, and for us to continue to connect with the farmers and to know what is happening on the ground, to have a feel. I would receive reports from my staff. I would have been in here about on three different occasions from the last flood to now, President last visit to now. But unless you spend time on the ground, it would be difficult for you to connect and have an appreciation of what is actually happening. I would have explained to some farmers in the past that, once water recedes, you need to be careful because due to fungal infection and dirty stagnant water, we expected a high level of mortality um, during that period. So we would have passed that period. So now we're in, now I would even say past recovery. Now we're now getting back into actual production of our the beef industry. If you look around when we came in this morning, um, if we can go back a little to last year, mid last year, where we had a number of dead animals, carcasses all around the place. Now you're not seeing carrion crows, you're not seeing those dead animals, which mean that whatever interventions we would have made in the past, it's really creating an impact. So we don't want to leave it at that. We want to complete the entire cycle, and the entire cycle would entails taking into consideration the animal welfare aspect, health, production, and the new kid on the block, climate change. I don't think it's something that we can turn our backs on. We need to address it, and we need to do that aggressively. Some of the farmers would have identified some of the challenges and some of the areas historically they think if we should make interventions that it would create further impact for them, positive impacts. So we will look at that. I will also be in here personally with the engineers to ensure that whatever we do, it is scientifically sound, have a plan to ensure that, because for us, a lot of persons think that for livestock, all you need is drainage, but no, that's not it. For livestock, we need both irrigation and drainage because the animals would need fresh, clean water. The drainage, yes, because we don't want excess water on the lands at certain time. Waterlogging can be just as bad. So we need to develop a system that would ensure that there's a balance between the two. Livestock production doesn't need as much water as rice production. No. So it's not a case where the demand on the system would be that great. What it would call for is for us to complete what we would have started, that is to ensure that the necessary infrastructures are in place so that we can move the livestock industry forward.
The NDIA is currently mobilizing machinery to begin interim works that will relieve some of the issues facing cattle farmers there at Cookrite Savannah, while engineers begin designing proposed infrastructural development work in the savannas. Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustapha has since indicated that government will be working to institute the ideas of what is needed to bring relief to the issues facing them.
Also, the farmers had made suggestion before that we need some impoldering and some and raise and lift some spots in the savanna so that the cattle cannot be flooded out easily when rain falls. So I'm considering that. The engineer is advising me on that, and we'll take those into consideration to develop this savanna. But as I said, we'll try to desilt all the canal to get proper drainage, and also help them to do some impoldering and lift their pen so that they would not be flooded out.